we're saving 4 times of manual inputs just from that one little tweak that took 4 hours research to find and 2 days to implement. And now forever, life of the company, we're saving that time. Mhm.
All right, well, welcome to Self Made, where we talk acquisitions to exit and kind of everything in between. Today we get joined by Riley, who's a fourth generation roofer, lives local with San Diego here, and got a pretty interesting story. How you doing, Riley?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Background of kind of where you've come from, being a fourth generation roofer, the mindset of do I want to do that? Do I want to, you know, stay in the industry to kind of where you are now? And yeah, give us a bit of a overview of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a fourth generation roofer. Great grandfather, grandfather, and my dad were all roofers. I grew up in the industry since I was 12. I was working on the roofs. My dad always made me do the hardest stuff, so it pushed me pretty far away from it. When I was a kid, I was always like, I'm never going to be a roofer. That doesn't sound like fun to me. And I went a bunch of different directions before I actually came back into roofing. So I was at one point I was actually a street magician. I thought that was pretty fun. I was a rescue
Badass.
diver through Patty, so I've been on 190 something dives now. I know you're a diver too, Jaron, but around the world. Then I went to college. I got a degree in marketing and management, and then I went and I worked for a YouTube ad agency as a data analyst. And so, how I got back into roofing, I worked there for a couple years and I was just working 14-hour days, crunching data. And I'm very extroverted in general. So, to sit behind a computer that long, I really struggled with. And I actually went from, I think when I started working there, I was about 220 pounds. And the day I quit, I was 297. And
Wow.
so it was sitting behind a desk. The CEO of the company was actually the biggest investor in Metro PCS. And so he had a ton of money to throw towards this thing. And they essentially built this like 7-Eleven in the kitchen, is how I describe it, where you have all these like hostess cupcakes, all this stuff to reach for energy. And when you're just staring at a computer all day, you're reaching for whatever you can get your hands on just to get the little bit more productivity. So eventually left that. Then I started my own marketing agency with a couple of the guys from there. And then during COVID, one of our biggest clients, the whale client, was a pharmaceutical agency. They were manufacturing in South Korea and they couldn't ship any of their product over during COVID. And so our biggest whale client, 80% of our revenue coming in overnight, lost them. So from there, called my dad up, hey, can I come work for you? And went back to work for him. And I've been with the roofing company for about 3.5 years now.
Full circle back.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot to be said there. I mean, one about putting a lot of your eggs in one basket with a, one contract is, the hard school of hard knocks there. But tell us more about the roofing company because I know you guys are a pretty big player in Southern California here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do more volume residentially than any other roofer in San Diego County. My dad started it after leaving his dad's company. It's a pretty funny story. His dad's company was a smaller company, probably 15 guys, and his dad said, "I want $1 million for my company." And my dad's like, you're not even doing the $1 million in volume." So eventually, my dad ended up starting his own company. We've been in business in San Diego for 34 years now. We do mostly residential work, mostly retail, but we do commercial as well. We do all the 7-Elevens, all the Jack in the Boxes, all of the Black Angus's, a bunch of these big commercial jobs as well.
Riley, talk us a bit through what you're doing now because I know we've had a lot of talks about your AI integration and kind of, the tech side of things because you're not technically swinging a hammer on the roof anymore. Kind of what's your overview and the company status?
Yeah, so actually, I've worn a lot of different hats within the company. I went directly into sales at first. I was working in sales, learning everything I could about sales, about every product we offer. Just dove straight into that. Eventually, we started having bottlenecks in a bunch of different areas. And my philosophy has always been one of my favorite quotes by Benjamin Franklin. He was actually talking about firefighting when he said this, but he said, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." And so I'm always looking at how I can prevent certain things rather than reacting once something already happens. And so my main focus whenever I'm in the office is always looking at all of our SOPs and how can we take certain processes that are taking longer than they should and improve them. And so I've been diving deeper into AI and automation in pretty much every area possible. So over the last 6 months, I'm going all in on, if we have 7 sales guys and I can remove 30 minutes a day from each of them, that starts to add up hugely. And so that's one of my main focuses now, is just automation. What can we do better? How can we increase communication? How can we lower the amount of work per sales guy of actual office work so we can focus on the important things, the communication with the customers? How are we creating an experience that customers love so much that they want to tell other people about us?
How do you determine, like you said, you try to reduce things that are taking longer than they should? How do you figure out what like that should piece is? Is it comparing like against other people, or what do you do to identify that?
Great question. We are involved with a lot of different groups, so we can see in a lot of different masterminds. So we can see what the industry standard is, whether we're
Mm,
in front of it or behind it. But standards in general, I think, are not where you don't want to be average. We want to be above average. So
right.
any area that we see where we're inputting the same data 3 different times, for example, we have 5 different CRMs that have different features that we're using,
Mm,
because none of them have an all-in-one solution for what we need or what we're looking to do for our standards of the company. We're inputting information 5 different times into different places. We
wow.
found this automation software that you input it once, and then it automatically, kind of like a Zapier, but it,
Mm,
it automatically throws it into every other area. So now we're saving 4 times of manual inputs just from that
mm,
one little tweak that took 4 hours research to find and 2 days to implement. And
mm.
now forever, life of the
Never
company, we're
again.
saving that time.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard a good rule of thumb. I forget the guy's name, but it was in his book, saying like the 1 for 30 rule. You should be willing to spend up to 30 times the amount of the time it would take you to. So, like, a lot of times people would think, like, all right, well, it only takes me like, a minute or two to enter it into each spot. So it's like 10 minutes, no big deal. I'll just do it. But, and then you said you spent 4 hours reaching it and 2 days to put it into place. People are like, that's a big cost. But now they don't realize that every time ever after that, you don't have to do it again. So the rule is be willing to spend up to 30 times the amount of time that it takes to do the task to like knock it out and automate it or delegate it or
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I
So,
absolutely love that.
so like be like that's what you should be willing to spend. So like if it takes 5 minutes, you should be willing to spend up to 150 minutes, which is like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-time cost. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I don't know, it could be even a bigger multiplier than that, of, if I can invest one time and it's done, those are the things I should be focusing on. And
Mm-hmm.
automation is that thing. Delegating is fantastic too, but then you still have a little bit higher cost there. So we always
Mm-hmm.
look at, what can we automate first? If it can't be automated, can we eliminate it? If we can't eliminate it, then we would delegate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's a automation, I think, is huge. I think it's similar with delegation, where a lot of times people don't think it can actually do things as good as they can do it. That's why a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the manual task, if you can automate those are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Where the higher leverage tasks a lot of times have to be delegated. But then there's the entrepreneur, a lot of times, especially in our company, we're very hesitant to give to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But every time we have, there's a huge return at the end of it. It's just, there's a lot of friction and a lot of pain in doing that, because nobody's going to do it as good as you can do it, or have the passion, or have the ability to even do it to the degree that you do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of my mentors, Riley Meek, would always say, you just have to get them to do it 80% as good as you can do it. You're never going to get them to do it as good as you are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Yeah.
never do, then you're stuck spending your own time on this thing, and you can never step out of it. You can never grow. There's no succession plan.
Yeah, exactly. I think Dan Martell says, 80% just as good is 100% awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if they can get 80%, because then you can get two people who do 80% or three people who do 80%, and that's 100 or 240% rather than your 100%.
I love it.
Tell us what else you guys are automating, because I know we've had talks about automating kind of the processes with AI in general. You might be able to tell a story, but someone in the same industry had a litigation against them for something so little, but worked out cost them so much. And you were talking about putting some AI development in place to, you know, not just for you but industry wide might be a pretty cool
Yeah.
incentive.
Yeah, so we're actually working on something really cool right now. One of our business partners, we're in California, and so in California, the legal system can be very sucky for business owners, to say the least. So we had one of our partners kind of got screwed by he got in this class action lawsuit for something that was pretty ridiculous. And essentially, we're creating this AI software to help protect business owners. It does a ton of different things. One of them is it does time tracking better. And so the biggest theft in America is employees stealing time. And businesses are losing their butt on it, or they're paying somebody to babysit these employees' time, especially with that we have 98 employees now. And so we have somebody full time babysitting these guys' hours, tracking where they at the job. Did they clock in at the McDonald's before they got to the job? Are they actually working? Did they clock out on time? We are creating an AI that tracks that perfectly. If were they at the job, were they not at the job? That will allow the office manager to not spend as much time on that, just to essentially look over it and have to babysit them, or you can get rid of that employee that is costing you $60,000 a year. It also stops them from stealing time. On top of that, it actually turns into a productivity app where we're tracking each one of these guys' productivity. How are they producing? In California, it's going to start to be required, or it might have already been passed, where you have to publicly post what every single person in your organization makes for everybody to see. And so, really, the only way to get around any issues there is paying based off productivity. And so, we're creating it specifically for California. It has a ton of features in it. We could do a full podcast just on the features that we're building out with it, but we're using no code software to build it out. We got quoted $250,000 to build out the MVP, what we wanted to get built out with all the features. They were talking about close to $1 million to build this out fully. We ended up we were looking around shopping different dev shops. It was going to be really expensive to launch, and then I connected with a no code AI guy. No code, for the audience that doesn't know, is essentially AI becomes the software developer, and you just have a team of people that can tell it what to do. And so they're utilizing this no code software, or you can even learn how to do it yourself. It's fairly simple, but we're utilizing it to build out the foundation of this instead of having to build it from scratch, which is going to save about 6 months of development, and we're going to get it built out for under 50 grand.
Wow. So how do you do like the tracking for productivity? How do you measure that for employees?
So we're building that out right now, and it's a very difficult thing. There's a lot of different components. It depends on the industry. One of the ways is they have to actually fill out at the end of the day how many squares did you complete. So say it's a 10 square job, and they say, hey, I did 6 squares today. If there's only 10 squares there and they only say they did 5 squares, they said they did 6. Now the next day, there's how do I explain this? So there's a cap to the amount that they can do. So there's 10 squares. So how long did it take you? If you did 6 squares one day, 4 squares one day, your average becomes 5 squares. So
Mhm.
that will track their productivity that way. If they're on a crew and there's multiple of them, it's a little tougher to do. So you have to say together you did this and then split it down the middle. But it's there's a lot of back-end data and figuring out how to do that in the best way.
Yeah, that'd be a tricky problem,
Mm.
and it varies, I'm sure, by industry or category or even in the job.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And if it's just
Mhm.
a one repair guy, it's fairly easy to track. But then
Right.
if you have multiple guys, you have 23 people working on one big commercial job. It's like, okay, how do you track individually what each guy did? Is that
Mhm.
possible?
Yeah, and what would the productivity in scheduling be with that? Say you've got a job coming up and you know exactly which team to put on the job for the time frame. Is that kind of the incentive behind building something like that up?
Yeah, so that's actually a really cool feature that's going to be in like stage 5 of development. But once we have all this data, we see how productive each one of our employees are. Say we have a 35 square job, we can put one guy that can do 15 squares and then one guy that could do 20 squares to get to our 35 rather than scheduling a 17 guy and this other guy. So it'll essentially create it where when we schedule all these jobs, it'll be there to max out the productivity of each employee. It'll also show us which employees work the best together.
Hmm.
Mike works better with Will, and Will doesn't work well with Harrison. You know,
Hmm.
and it'll essentially take all of this big data and then showcase, hey, these are the best guys to schedule on these jobs.
That's cool. Really getting you back to your YouTube days.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So then, yeah, like Jared said, you could do, productivity pay or bonuses. I guess a structure you could do based off of how productive they are or their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's another really cool feature that we're looking to add. So a lot of this is like there's nothing else on the market like this. We were essentially shopping around for different softwares that did these different things. That's one of the reasons why we have so many freaking CRMs is because we're looking for all these different features, and none of them can do it all on their own, and they don't want to integrate with each other because they're
Hmm.
competition.
Right.
And so it's very difficult to find a solution that works for all that. And so part of the reason we're building this is just because we didn't want to get into software. We wanted a solution to help us be more efficient, but it's nobody has it out there. So we're
Hmm.
like, well, there's a gap in the market here. We need to create the solution.
Yeah. As so many good businesses are created like scratching your own itch.
And what level would you say this becomes applicable? You guys have 98 guys running around now versus, 3, 4 trucks on the road. When you're looking at like the unit level economics, when is something like this kind of makes sense to be implemented, in your opinion?
We're gonna work on a pricing structure so that any size company can use it and implement this. I think regardless of what size your company is, if you have 3 guys, you can use a lot of the features we have. If you are running a bigger size company, you have 50 plus employees, at that point I think it becomes huge just to have somebody have the software that's managing all of these people. And there's going to be connectivity to all your different, we're going to have an open API where you can connect to all these different CRMs you already have. It's going to be extremely minimal work, and it's going to be awesome, ideally to the point where they're not going to want to go back to the old way of doing things. And we're
Hmm.
building it out off of experience, off of, look, if we have this would be worth it. For the cost we're building it out, we're going to pay for the app itself, just utilizing it for our own company in 6 months for ourselves for the
Hmm.
development cost of it. And so if we decided not to sell it, or if we only wanted to use it for ourselves, we already got an ROI on it.
So you multiply that out over a bunch of people, really, like you said, it really starts to add up for cost savings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I could see this software. So many people are wanting to use it that I have to like go full time over there almost, and start running the software company. If that surpasses what we're doing over here, then yeah, we would have to hop over there. So I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, imagine after shingles, that's probably your number one cost, right? It's just labor.
Yeah, yeah, labor is expensive.
Maybe even is your number one cost. Who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it is for a lot of roofs. A lot of times people will do tile relays where they will essentially reuse the same tile off the roof, and you have to stack it off the roof. Then you redo the underlayment, you throw OC weather lock, all your metals on the roof, and then you reuse the same tile.
Hmm.
When you compare the cost to reusing the same tile versus just adding new tile because of how expensive the labor cost is, you're talking like 15% more and you get a brand new roof.
Wow. Yeah. So that's where all the cost comes from.
Yeah, labor is expensive.
Especially in California.
Oh man. Yep. Yep. Those paychecks every month. They hurt seeing the tax come out.
Right. So you had the labor, and you said like entry into the CRM. What are some of the other big areas you guys are implementing automation or AI?
Yeah, so we're looking at every area, and so we have weekly. We run off EOS,
Big
which is
fan.
is a great system. Yeah, if
Hmm.
you guys haven't heard of it, Entrepreneur Operating System. Gino Whitman, he has some great books. Get a Grip is a really good one. Traction is essentially the same thing. Get a Grip's more of like the story format of it. Fantastic book. We run off of it, not 100%, but we've taken a lot of what that is. So we do our level 10 meetings, and we're always looking at what is an area that we can grow in, where, and then we will look at our reviews. Did we get any bad reviews this week? Okay, what was the bad review on? Oh, they said they were going to be here at 8 o'clock. They got here at 8:03. Okay, well, is that feedback that we can utilize, or is that just what happens? And so we'll look at all these different areas of how can we get better? How can we be really critical about the way we're communicating? How can we communicate better? Our follow-up, for instance, isn't very good at all. We're running such high volume that we don't have time to follow up right now for our sales team, and we're missing out on a ton of work because of it. But then we run into these operation issues of we are just maxed out with operations. Every roofing company right now in Southern California, well, and actually Northern Cal too, is just with the weather this year has been nuts. We need more roofers. I mean, there's so much work out there; it's ridiculous. But yeah, we're always looking at different areas. How can we improve? What can we do to create a better experience for the end user here? How do we increase our productivity? And we look into every single issue of the company. It can be very overwhelming if you try to do everything at once. So usually
Mhm.
we'll look at what is going to have the biggest impact. What is the one thing that we can do that will move the needle the most if we focus on it this quarter or if we focus on it this month? I think a lot of times I've fallen into a trap of writing down a full 30 pages of everything that needs to be done, and it just creates overwhelm. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, let's organize this a little better. Let's figure out how do we get better at one thing this month. What is the one thing we're going to do that is going to create this exponential effect on our business, that when we look back we can say, yeah, that our business is much better because of this one thing that we automated. um it is tough, and I'm wearing so many hats right now that it's tough to be in that position of research and development, figuring out what do we get better at? Okay, how do we do this? What apps or softwares or AIs can help us automate these certain things when I'm just running 100 miles an hour in every direction? So really
Mhm.
talking to myself right now is how do I delegate more of what I'm doing now so I can step more into that working on the business and stepping back rather than working in the business.
Mhm.
And it's tough to do when you're just, I mean, I'm running 26 appointments a week right now too, just because I'm taking the overflow, or else we're 4 weeks out on just getting a roof estimate to somebody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seriously. So then you're trying to find where the bottleneck is, like I guess it sounds like you don't have a salesperson to do the estimates, or like how do you typically try to resolve it?
Yeah, it's a that's something that's a very tough thing to do, especially when you don't know if it's seasonal. How seasonal is it? We don't want to hire sales guys, train them up. There's a lot of time, energy, money going into that. Teach them industry knowledge, teach them product knowledge, teach them how to actually communicate with people, get them to know, like, and trust you, and everything within sales. I mean, 4 months process of training these guys up, putting time, effort, energy into it, just to have a slowdown and then have to get rid of them. We hate to get rid of people, so we're out of all of our roofing companies and all the masterminds we're the lowest overhead. We run very lean on overhead, but because of that, when we have big seasonal things, everyone starts to redline a little bit and running 100 miles an hour. So there's a balance there of figuring out, okay, how much is this seasonal, or and how much do we just grow into this? And I'm from a marketing background. I'm always, that's where like the different philosophies come in with our executive board. Is my dad's more so, we're gonna run lean, we're going to work a little harder. We're going to work 16-hour days until this blows over. And I'm like, look, I can control the front end, the marketing, the sales, all of that, as long as we can handle the back end. If we start slowing down, I'll just ramp up the marketing. But it's yeah, it's a little different philosophy. There's definitely a balance there. You don't want to hire too many people and over leverage yourself where you have a slowdown and you screw yourself.
Right. Yeah, you have a lot of excess weight.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
So I guess a lot of companies, especially ones that have been around for 34 years, are probably, especially a third, fourth generation roofer, like your dad coming in, starting a company, probably not having like a end goal in mind, So it's just build and had a lot of success and continue to grow the company. Now, if you were like specifically building a company for an exit, you might reverse engineer a lot of those things and have, some of those things noted out kind of before day one. What do you guys have a kind of an exit plan moving forward, and is that influencing kind of some of the decisions you're making in daily operations now?
Yeah, great question. Right now, it seems like roofers or service-based industries are the prettiest girl at the ball for PE. We're getting offers right and left from all these private equity companies of wanting to come in, and every roofing company is right now. Um, so it's I think a couple reasons. During COVID, we weren't shut down because we were qualified as a necessary business, essential
Essential.
business.
Mm.
So then something like that comes in, then we're still okay. We can still run. I think that's very attractive. I think what AI is doing and the projected job loss because of it, AI is not going to take over roofing anytime soon. And so it's fairly future proof. People always need roofs in good markets and bad markets. People always need roofs. It's very attractive. If private equity comes in and gives you an offer that you can't refuse, at a certain point, you got to say, they're overpaying for what my company's worth." We've looked into it. There's a bunch of different strategies as far as rollover, far as full exit of 5-year exits. Uh, as far as right now where we're at, we love running it, and
Mm.
so it would be hard for us to sell and get out of the game just because it's like, well, what would we do? Cool, we got $25 million, but now we're bored.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? And so
Right.
it's hard to exit something, even more so for my dad. I mean, it's his baby. He grew for 34 years. And so it'd be very tough for him to get out of it. I think if we did sell to private equity, then it would be selling it and then still running it,
Hmm.
and then maybe multiple exits down the line. That being said, if the software side of the business takes off and we have $100 million plus evaluation there, it's like, dude, we got to step into this. This is the better opportunity,
Hmm.
less risk, and it's just a better opportunity in general. But what private equity is doing right now is nuts. It's pretty cool. My dad never thought when he started his roofing company that anyone would want to ever buy his company. He was always just building it up to hand it off to me.
Hmm.
So
Now he probably has a line out the
pretty
door.
cool. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's funny. And we all make decisions as an executive board too. So he's like, if I'm not selling unless everybody wants to sell.
Yeah, I mean, some of those multiples. We are talking to a guy who's an M&A advisor. Some of those multiples are crazy. I think he said he sold one last year for a 12x.
Yeah,
Just crazy.
yeah,
That's what they want. It's recession
Yeah.
yeah.
proof. Like you said, everybody needs it.
And that's nuts to get a
Hmm.
12x on your multiplier on your EBITDA for a roofing company or for
Hmm.
a service-based company. I mean, that's like software X's.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense because typically they're rolling it up to an even bigger one, and they get an arbitrage. So if they buy it for 12, they can roll it together with something else and get it for a 15, and it's a nice profit for them with the organic growth. So it makes sense
Yeah.
as you roll it up.
It's definitely not a bad option,
Hmm.
especially selling a portion, having people come in with resources, with capital,
Hmm.
and helping you grow it to the next level. I mean, for us, our biggest bottleneck is probably operations by
Hmm.
far. Is we're fully maxed out with what we're doing operations wise. And if we can get that figured out, we can definitely scale to the next level. We spend virtually nothing on marketing. Companies that are our same size are spending over 100 grand a month to do the volume we're doing at
Hmm.
3,000 a month. Is what we're spending.
Hmm.
And so there's a huge opportunity for everything is word of mouth. It's pretty much 90% of our work comes from word of mouth or referrals.
Hmm.
And so if we just blew up the marketing side of that, which I could do. I worked as a data analyst for YouTube ads. We could completely take this and 3x it fairly quick as long as operations can hold up. The
Right.
problem is when companies scale at that speed, a lot of times their quality goes downhill and
Yep.
reputation goes with it.
Hmm.
And reputation is our most important thing. We always
Yeah.
come back to how do we create the best experience for the end user, for our customer, for our client? How do we create an experience so good that they want to tell other people about it? And that's very hard to
Hmm.
do as a roofing company. But how do at every step we just do we do 100 little things that make us absolutely love them. When we go in and we do sales calls, we put in booties on our boots every time. A lot of times, oh, no need for that. Well, I walk on asphalt all day. I just want to make sure I don't drag anything in your house. Boom in
Hmm.
their head. Man, they're very
They care.
attention to detail.
Hmm.
It's awesome.
Hmm.
Oh, let me look in the attic. Oh, the other 4 roofers didn't look in the attic. How do they know exactly where the water's coming from? It's all the little tweaks that we do,
Hmm.
and we do enough of them, and we spend time with them. Yesterday, I ran 2 different places. This one lady gave me, like, this full box of chocolates after I was spending there. This other lady, I was at her house, and she gave me, like, 4 different books. I was talking to her. I mean, we create this likability with them just because of
Hmm.
everything we do. We actually care about the roof. We actually provide the best solution, and because of that, we get ridiculous amount of referrals. Because if someone doesn't need a new roof, we're not telling them they need a new roof.
Yeah.
We're repairing it for the minimum cost. And when the other 2 roofers that came said, "Yeah, you need a new roof," and we fixed their leak and it lasts 5 years, they're calling us in the future. So it's more work
Right.
anyways.
Hmm.
But yeah, we keep filtering back to that of how to create the best experience. When you try to scale too quick, you lose that. We see a
Hmm.
ton of companies do that. For the solar industry, for instance, a lot of the biggest companies, they scaled so quick that their quality of installing the solar to the actual roof is terrible. They're actually using the wrong solar stanchions. This year, we're probably going to do $5 million worth of repairs because of bad solar installs, just in bad solar installs.
Hmm.
There's so many companies that they scale too quick, they lose quality. So if we do scale, if we do decide to 3x the company in the next 5 years, we would have to make sure we are absolutely focused on quality as number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of like the age-old question of do you hire ahead or do you hire behind? And I feel like when you grow too fast, you're hiring behind, and it takes a while for you to get, to get enough talent and then to train them up. So you're always running behind, and then you dilute that talent just because you're always trying to catch up.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah,
hire
for sure.
ahead, you got to carry that on your balance sheet, right? You got to or on your profit and loss because you're paying for people when you don't quite have the demand, and you're training them up with the expectation that you're going to grow into it. So it's kind of the trade off either way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Exactly. And
Mm.
so that's yeah, that is the question of what is the right way to go here? And you
Hmm.
never know. I mean, you're as a business owner, you're always going to make wrong decisions. The goal is to just make the least amount of wrong decisions possible. But
Mm.
there's a quote by Dan Pena I like. He said, "I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt." And so
I like
I'm
that.
always going to make decisions, if
Yeah.
or like Tom Bilyeu, guy I listen to a lot. He started Quest
Mm.
Nutrition, had a big exit.
Yeah.
He always says the most the most data rich information you can get is failure. If you win, you didn't get any smarter.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
just got to boost your ego. He's like,
Right.
I'd rather do things to fail, and I'd rather run in the wrong direction 100 miles, knowing that I'm running in the wrong direction, than just stay still. Because eventually, I'm going to correct and be further than I was from not taking action.
Hmm. Yeah. When you're trained from running 100 miles, right? So you're going to be in better shape to run
Yeah,
the other
come
way.
on,
Just
come on.
I
knackered.
like that. Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, where do you see the direction of the company going? Obviously, like you guys are kind of, working on the tech side as well as running a great company. You talk, potentially a little bit about PE, but is that something you see the direction long term, or do you think would be like even longer vision for you, kind of moving forward? Stay in the business world, move more to the tech side of things.
Yeah, in general, I love the game of business. I wake up and I'm pumped just to come and look at how do we get better at this thing? How do we improve here? Looking at our financials. How do we get better here? Why is our overhead so low here? Why is this number too high? Looking at all of that and making data-driven decisions and then going in and helping lead these teams, helping tweak people. I love being around people. I mean, I'm naturally extroverted. I'm extremely optimistic. Like I can step in front of a team and pump them up. That's what I love to do. I don't think I would ever want to step out of the game business. It's a game for me. I love doing it. It's why I can work 16-hour days and keep going. I'm at a place where I'm stepping more into, like, if you look at the EOS structure of visionary, I've been back and forth, where there's a great book by Gino Whitman, Rocket Fuel 2. He talks about the visionary to the integrator relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing both. Actually, there's a test you can go take online as well, and I'm one of the rarest people that can be integrator and can be visionary. I can step into both positions. The danger is doing both, um, and that's the balance. Is
Mm-hmm.
I think I need to step more into that visionary role and look at the bigger picture rather than working in the company.
What's the rest of your executive board? Are they more integrators?
Yes. Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
So yeah.
Pretty much all of them are.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to step in that position within the next year and just be looking at what are the big decisions. I'm
Mm-hmm.
such a researcher, such a reader. I think I just finished my 170th book on Audible. So
Wow.
I'm always like, I don't even listen to Spotify in the car. I'm listening to either
Mm-hmm.
audiobooks or podcasts, or I'm soaking up everything I can to see how I can implement it. The reason, because I've noticed that when I read something, I implement it, my life gets better.
Right.
And so I nerd out on it. I nerd out on learning, and I nerd out on the game of business. I think we're gonna definitely keep growing. I could see solar as an industry is a little slower than it has been in the past, but it's always cyclical, where it seems like it goes up and down and up and down. I could see another huge solar boom happening, and we grow the solar side of the company is because the roofing is. I would love to stay in the company and fully run it. I wouldn't be opposed to hopping over to the software side either. And so it's really just wherever I feel is the biggest opportunity and the smartest move.
Mm-hmm.
In general, roofing's never going to go away. There's reasons why big money wants to come in and acquire our company. It's because we're pretty scroll at the ball right now. People want to own us, and so that makes me think too of like, well, hold on a second. If everybody wants us, then there's a lot of value here. So the future of Dana Logsdon Roofing and Solar is just keep steadily growing, going back to our values, our mission of creating the best experience possible for the homeowners and protecting your most valuable asset, your home.
Love it. Watch out. Who knows? Who knows what's coming next?
Come on,
Yeah.
come on. Who knows? I'm all over the place too. I'm very optimistic, very jack of all trades in a lot of areas. So I have to be very aware of that. I think it was Warren Buffett said, the man who chases two rabbits catches none. And I have a very bad habit of going after a bunch of different things. That's why I was a rescue diver. Then I was in magic. I was doing magic. Then I was doing data analytics. Then I was doing. I did real estate videography at one point. I've learned all these different skills, which has all helped me in this one area. But if you don't have focus, like Alex Ramosio always says, you got to do the boring over and over again
Mm-hmm.
in order to win in anything. And so I have to be very aware of where I'm putting my time, effort, and energy. If I am half focused on two things, I'm going to get beat out by the two people that are fully focused on that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like a kind of hubristic to think that you won't, right? Like, oh, I can do
Yeah.
five things at once. Do you think you can do five things at once better than the guy who's doing one?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it's super tough. It's extremely tough for me. And Tom Bilyeu actually said this too. He's like, it's the hardest truth for me to grasp is that you can do anything you want, just not everything. He's like, I hate that. That hurts me to my core that I can't do it all,
Yeah,
you know?
we have to give up.
So
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
close doors.
yeah, yeah. Which is for me extremely tough, but
Hmm.
something that's necessary.
Yeah, but then it forces you to really think about the door you choose. Then to
Mm,
really dig deep and be like, all right, well, if I had to close all the other doors, what is the one that I'm really going to focus on?
yeah, so good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been great. We'll have to chat again in the future and see how everything develops. And super curious to see the unfolding of the tech you guys are developing and how it complements other industries as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
All right, I'd love to. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Well, yeah, thanks again, and we'll be talking to you shortly.